coil into the backswing, the weight shift, the ignition of the forces that move the body all start with the interaction between the foot and the ground. Is that any golfer with a history of foot and ankle injury or pain, history of ankle sprains, Achilles issues, foot and ankle arthritis, big toe joint issues, bunions certainly. All this can actually lead to and be related to things like low back pain. Even your posture has a lot to do with how you are putting force down into the ground. Now, obviously, this can affect performance as well. Swing issues like spinning out, sliding or swaying, losing posture. Speed deficiencies at the club head has a lot to do with how you're able to time up and put forces down into the ground. You move the body and create the forces of the swing. It starts at the ground. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to break down some tests that you can do specifically related to the foot and ankle to see if you have what you need to start initiating and creating the forces for the golf swing, right? So what tests can we do to tell us a little bit more about your foot and ankle mobility? What can we learn about your motor control stability through that foot and ankle? And then what are some interventions that we can do that'll help improve on any test that you are struggling with? Further, we're going to go through some drills that really integrate this into the full swing and then eventually creating force. So it all comes down to, can we take all these changes at the foot and ankle to mobility and stability and integrate that into a sequencing which creates as much force and speed as possible? So what are the motions at the foot, ankle, and tibia that we need in the golf swing? So the key motions to know would be in the sagittal plane is dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. So think when your toes are coming closer to your knee, that is dorsiflexion. This is the motion that a lot of people struggle with. The opposite of that would be plantar flexion, where we're kind of pushing down, think about like stepping on a gas pedal. That is plantar flexion. It's kind of a force-producing motion. Dorsiflexion is more of a force absorption motion, right? It's a mobility thing that, again, a lot of people lack. Very important as well is this supination and pronation at the foot. So supination would be where the feet are kind of coming underneath us and almost like the feet are pointing towards each other, while pronation would be like you're trying to take the bottom of your feet and point them out, right? So we got supinated foot, pronated foot. It can also be considered like an inverted foot being supination and an everted foot, creating eversion in that plane as being a pronated foot. We're going out and away, out and away. A lot of people struggle with this pronation motion, right? So what we expect when we do some testing is for this to be what someone's pronation and supination looks like. Without this knee moving too much, we want to see, can we go sole the foot towards the ceiling and then sole the foot out and away. So it looks kind of like this. Now we're not obviously getting that foot all the way towards the ceiling, but we want this to be a pretty fluid motion. People usually have more supination than pronation. This would be a decent little test here. What you'll find is some people really kind of get almost nothing in terms of pronation, just doesn't move. Same thing on this left side. We got some supination, pronation, supination, pronation. I'm just getting better and better at that. You can see the motor control. It's kind of a subjective test. We just want to see, can you do it pretty fluidly without too much excessive motion, right? And I struggle a little bit with pronation on this left foot. Besides that, what we want is rotation. So this rotation is happening kind of here at the knee joint and at the ankle, as we want tibial internal and external rotation. Now again, we can't let this move because then this is a compensated motion, right? We want it just to be from these joints, and we want 20 degrees at least of internal rotation, 20 degrees at least of external. Everyone has better external rotation for the most part. A lot of people struggle to get at least 20 with internal rotation. Make sure as you do that internal rotation that you get that bottom of the foot, that arch down. Some people kind of cheat. They do like this. This is not the same thing as that, right? And so yeah, internal rotation, external rotation. Those are some of the key movements, motions of the ankle, right? 20 degrees internal, external rotation. We got dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, and then we have supination, pronation, which is more of a subjective test. So how do we measure dorsiflexion to know if we have enough? There's a few ways to do it. One way that we can do it is simply by, in a kind of weight-bearing stance, is let's go one foot in front of the other. We want these feet almost perfectly in line, and then I want you to squat straight down. The key here is without this bottom heel on this backside foot, we don't want that heel to come off the ground, and we want to see, can we get this knee to, we call the medial malleolus, this little bump on the inside of your forward ankle. If we can get that knee to the malleolus and beyond, then we know we have pretty good weight-bearing dorsi ankle flexion, as much as we should need, right? And if we struggle and we can't get that knee to or past that medial malleolus without that heel popping up like that, then we think, okay, we need to work on some dorsiflexion on that side. we say it's probably restricted. Some sources will say about 4 inches of dorsiflexion is normal. There's different ways to do this. About a fist width from the front toe. We can measure that distance, put a driver in front, and then without letting your hips steer towards one side or the other, just see, can we get your knee that distance in front of your toe, again, without this heel coming off the ground. So that is some of the motions, the key motions at the foot and ankle that we'd expect and want to see in a golfer. So our testing might have found we have an ankle dorsiflexion issue. Maybe we have a tibial internal rotation issue or a pronation and supination issue to start with, right? So why are these movements important at the lower half? Well, in the swing, as we go and initiate down into, say, the backswing, we are turning our pelvis on a stable lower extremity. Essentially, this foot is planted down into the ground. This is how we allow the body to wind up to start to initiate these forces that we're going to then eventually slingshot down into the ball. So if our feet are grounded, that means that every single movement is happening on top of the foot. So the foot has to be able to change shape. What's happening in the backswing with this trail side foot is that as I come back into the backswing, I'm actually supinating through this right foot. If my foot is staying grounded, the arch can still start to rise to create room or space for this tibia to rotate backwards as well, and this femur to rotate backwards as well, and then this pelvis is rotating backwards on top of the femur. Now, at the joint's perspective, there's actually some internal rotation happening at this joint. Everything's rotating externally, but the pelvis is going to rotate more on top of this femur than the femur is. This means that the surface area or the space at the joint is actually a space creating internal rotation. The environment is an environment of internal rotation. And then same down and down and down. Now that only happens if we can stay grounded and create relative motion from one bone to the next at the joints, right? So we're creating supination on this right side, and I'm pushing myself into this trail side through my lead side foot, which is pronating or pushing down into the ground. So we need to have pronation and supination on either side. We need to have internal and external rotation on this trail side as well as this lead side as we push into the backswing. And as we maintain our posture, we need to make sure that we have enough ankle space in there to maintain this dorsiflexed position. It's not an extreme amount of dorsiflexion, but there's dorsiflexion there, and then we need to be able to rotate in that dorsiflexed position. Now, dorsiflexion is also coupled with things like pronation and supination. So if we can't move well through dorsiflexion, we're just going to take away from our supination, pronation, and internal external rotation. So all these things really go together. We want to address dorsiflexion to make sure that we have as much of it as we need, because this also means that we have the opportunity to create relative motion in those other areas that we talked about, like pronation, supination, and tibial internal and external rotation. Now, as we come down into the downswing, what we're getting is the exact opposite. It's just a switch. This foot is coming out of a supinated position, and it's pronating and pushing down, down, down. Everything is rotating inward, but the pelvis is rotating a little bit more, creating an environment of external rotation, and external rotation as that foot arch drops down and pushes away into my lead side. This lead side has to be strong and mobile enough to accept all these forces through rotation, to create a little bit of vertical force as well, which means we need to be able to plantar flex, internally rotate through these joints relative to the joints around it, right? And then a ton of internal rotation here at the hip as well. So the foot and ankle is going from a pronated position in this lead side into a supinated position as we come down. If this foot can't change shape and create a good supinated position, then it's just going to compensate. If our foot just turns into a brick, it's not really mobile, it can't move, it can't accept forces through positions like this, then we get this foot really starting to spin out far too early in the swing. And if our body knows that it doesn't want to do that, then it'll compensate somewhere else. It'll go to the low back. It'll say this foot isn't going to do what we need it to do. We want all this rotation happening now on this upper half, right? So now we have some low back pain, and we can actually get some arthritis down the line through some of these joints for not allowing them to move through their full range of motion like that, right? So that's why we need dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, tibial internal external rotation, and pronation supination from each joint, each foot and ankle essentially on either side. Okay, so we've tested some of our mobility around the ankle. We know what we need to work on. We know why it's important to have these movements at the foot and ankle for the golf swing. Let's start trying some drills that will not only fix one of these things at a time, but start to pull a few of these movements together to get some improvement in some mobility down here at the foot and ankle. Okay, with this movement here, we need A medium band can work up in the resistance in the band. Anchor it as low as you can get it. And then we want a foot or an ankle that is elevated relative to the band's anchor, right? So if we're hanging out here, this band goes around your lower ankle. What we're trying to work on and drive here and improve is ankle dorsiflexion. So the position or how much range we get, where essentially if you try to bring your toes as close to your knee, this is ankle dorsiflexion. And then as we push down and do something like a calf raise, that's plantar flexion. So a big limiter in many, many movements is this ankle dorsiflexion movement where the toes are coming towards your knee. So something we can do to help with that, if it's a bony restriction through here, is get this band just underneath either malleoli or these little bumps on the side of your ankle. And we get the band right below it. It helps pull or traction that talus bone, which attaches there, and it pulls it posteriorly or backwards as we do this drill, which is what the motion should naturally be. Sometimes when we start to get restricted through there, bone stops moving like that, and then we lose access to ankle dorsiflexion. So the band helps encourage that. All you do is keep all your weight forward on this forward leg. Keep your knee over your toes as you rock forward, keeping your heel down the whole time to maximize dorsiflexion. And then we sit back. And then we rock back in. Try to relax your foot as much as you can, but again, all the weight stays forward. And then we pull back. So we rock forward with our weight. Foot and ankle is trying to stay as relaxed as possible. And then we sit back. So we just do this rocking motion, helping to re-encourage ankle dorsiflexion. This is a great passive start to reintroduce this motion to the ankle. Give it a shot. For this drill here, we're trying to reintroduce and encourage pronation of the foot and supination of the foot, right? So to teach the foot to naturally start moving through this range of motion without having to force it there, right? So let the arch of the foot start naturally doing what it needs to do. So we have a towel that we use as feedback. This towel or a sock, we can roll it up, fold it up, whatever kind of makes sense to you. It goes underneath the arch of the foot. It shouldn't go all the way through, right? So it's just on the inside edge of the middle part of the foot. And that gives us our feedback. So we know when the arch is dropping down into it, we can feel it more. And we know when we're rising that arch back up because we feel less of it. So all this drill is to start is the weight is in my trail leg. All I'm doing is breaking this knee. It needs to start from a full length. I'm just going to bend the knee a little bit and then drive my weight forward into this right heel, then into the midfoot, and I really feel my foot starting to press into the towel, and then into my forefoot, but never the toes. So we stop just short of the toes, and then we rock back slowly into full knee extension, into full knee extension. From there, we go right back. Feel the weight in my heel. Now I'm moving my body forward, my pelvis forward over my foot to do it. This foot's just kind of hanging out, helping me to balance. And then I pull it back and then in. Now we can add this rotation component to it as well. So it's a subtle drill. We need the foot to be able to relax, to let these motions start to drive themselves back into the foot. So you have to be as relaxed as possible on this lead side foot. Don't try to force any motion down or up, okay? Now let's add that rotation. So let's go hands on the hips, weights in my back leg, knee is straight. I'm gonna start to bend my knee, shift my weight forward. And as I do that, weight's now in my midfoot as I continue to rotate, rotate, rotate. Foot is as relaxed as I can get it. Toes are completely relaxed. Don't let them curl or clench. Weight's in the forefoot. And now I'm gonna start bringing it back, back, back as I untwist. And then I end in full knee extension and I see that arch rise back up. Okay, so from the side, I start with the knee straight. I'm going to break at the knee, rock my pelvis forward. I twist. I feel the arch drop into that towel. My foot's as relaxed as I can get it. And then I untwist. I start pulling that weight back into the midfoot, now into the heel. And then I finish with extension of this knee. And that's when that foot really rises up off that towel as much as we can get it. So it's as much supination as we can get. And in this position, we have as much pronation as we can get. Pronation, supination, pronation, supination. So we move much slower than that. And don't forget to end with this last bit of knee extension and then bend the knee to start. Okay, that is an important pronation and supination drill that you can start to get the feel back into pronation and supination. And we have to let the bones do their jobs if this is going to work. We can't force our way into pronation and supination. It is a body weight, it's a weight-bearing movement, right? So the foot needs to be able to naturally do these things. And this is how we start to drive some mobility back into the foot to help get these motions back. Okay, go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, for this drill here, we are working on pronation and supination of the foot, but we're going to bring some knee flexion and extension into it as well. Now, we start with our foot, with our toes hanging off a plate or any kind of raised surface like this, because it'll tell us when we start to clench the toes. When the toes start to clench down like that, the foot becomes very tense. All those muscles and tendons that help make that happen start to get taut, right? And so we take the ability to kind of move in and out of positions away from that foot. So this is feedback to say, hey, don't let the weight get into the toes, because the moment they start to work to stabilize, we've lost mobility at the foot. Okay, now this can be up against the wall, and you can kind of use the wall for support or a rig. I'm using a PVC pipe to help keep my balance. This is what the drill looks like. So it starts, if I'm using the left foot, is I'm gonna bend or break at the knee, and I'm going to reach across, and I can bend my knee to help me get there. And then I start to straighten the knee a little bit as I rotate my pelvis back out towards you. We pull knee back in, and I sit and sink into that a little bit, and then I come back up through here like this. Now the key with this movement is you're not allowed to let the inside edge of the foot start to lift off the ground like that. We just lost relative motion. We want to drive in this position some supination, so you see that arch really rise back into that foot. I want you to let that happen. And then as we come back around, we feel that arch start to drop as our weight shifts towards the inside. And now we have a pronated position through here. Toes are still relaxed. As we come back through here, we're back into kind of a supinated position. And then through here, the arch drops, and we're back down into a pronated position. So again, use a wall or some sort of external support to help you work through that position. But now we're really driving a weight-bearing position, some knee flexion and extension, and then some pelvic rotation on top of it to help teach the body what positions the body is in when we create a supinated position at the foot and a pronated position at the foot, right? And to keep the toes away and let the foot relax and do its job as it needs to for pronation and supination. Go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, for this exercise or drill, what we're trying to do is drive tibial internal rotation relative to the ankle and relative to the knee. So with this position, we want to keep a very loose foot. I don't want you driving too much contraction or tension into the foot as you do this. Don't think about curling your toes or bringing a ton of activation to the foot. We want it to be loose so it can spread out and then kind of naturally contract as we pull ourselves back. So just let the foot be as natural and loose as you can. Otherwise, our hands go on the other side of these bones poking on the other side, the malleoli. Foot stays flat. We just roll or rock ourselves on top, and I want you to think as if these malleoli are both rotating towards the left. Okay, so we're driving some internal rotation as we do this. Now the knee should stay over top of the foot as we do it. We don't want to overdo it and pull that knee too far towards the midline. We can think first like the knee just rocks over towards the toe. And we can pull ourselves into rotation without having that knee go way too far over. We can even go knee towards mid-toe or the middle toe as we rock and pull ourselves into tibial internal rotation. Even out towards the pinky, or the pinky toe, and we're still driving some tibial internal rotation as we do that. So the tibia can rotate in even as the knee rocks out. And in some cases, that might be the best thing to try because we get some relative femoral external rotation as we drive internal rotation there at the knee. So an important step and stage in a lot of knee and ankle rehab is just driving and returning the ability for that tibia to rotate independent of these two structures. Go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, so we spent some time working on ankle mobility. I'd say a couple weeks to a month. If we're doing drills like this, you can even see we've got some integration through these drills where we're getting more than one movement at once. Right now, we're really well on the process to getting as much foot and ankle mobility back into this lower half. So let's take some of that great mobility and stability that we've started to work in, and let's really integrate it into some sequencing and more importantly, some force and power speed development drills, right? So we can get a little bit more performance-based now where we really want to challenge the body to use all the space that we've opened up, use it in combination with each other, and now start putting a golf club in your hand or a medicine ball or a kettlebell and get some higher forces and higher load into this lower half so we can make sure that we're in the golf swing, we can actually translate this stuff to golf performance. Okay, this is our heavy band takeaway. So we can do this in the backswing direction as well as the downswing direction. In both cases, as a righty golfer, here this is my backswing direction. In both cases, we're only moving this band from about thigh to just beyond the opposite side thigh. So from about here to here. We want to load this up with a very heavy band. We go even heavier than this here. Again, we want this to be right on tension at this thigh and then have exceptional amount of tension through here. What we can work on in a drill like this is getting the core involved to create rotation on a stable platform, right? Stable feet, stable femurs, as well as trying to figure out what muscles need to work to push yourself into this right side and pull yourself into this right side. So I want you to feel on this lead side foot that you're pushing through the inside edge of this foot into initiating the backswing. You should feel this left glute start to work hard here. Same thing, I want you to feel yourself pulling yourself into this right side with this right groin or adductor muscles, right? So I want you to feel some right groin, almost like your foot is sliding across the floor, but the friction is going to keep it there as we pull ourselves into this right side, inside groin. And you'll even get a little bit of the side hip starting to work on this side as you pull yourself from this side. That should be the anterior glute med and some of this side muscles here at the hip. Again, working to pull us into this right hip. So we can integrate this push and this pull into this backswing, as well as you're going to feel the core and obliques working hard to pull through the trunk and stabilize the pelvis as well. So all these muscles are going to be working hard together. And again, I want you thinking about ground reaction forces as we push through the inside edge of this foot and pull ourselves through the connection with the ground on this foot. Okay, so don't miss out on these components. Now the same thing is reversed when we go into what would be a downswing version of this, where I'm pulling myself into here and pushing myself out of there. I want you to feel hip, groin, some side hip here. Okay, go ahead. We do this for slow reps. Hold for a second or two, and then back down. Trying to integrate all this together. We can find pain in this, maybe in the low back, different areas tells us we're compensating, and we can just work through different positions to help make sure that this is a pain-free motion and we're getting the right muscles doing the right things at the right time. Give it a shot. Okay, this is our single leg in front kettlebell swing. So we have variations where we are doing a kettlebell swing out to the side. Great way to load the hip, get some internal rotation. We also have a in front kettlebell swing like this. Again, a great way to encourage some motion, rotation here at the hip, relative motion at the hip and pelvis, foot and ankle. But in this case, we're going to do a single leg version. We have our back leg propped up, most of our weight here in the front leg, soft bend in the knee. And again, we're just doing a side kettlebell swing, but now with 99% of the weight on this front side foot. What you'll notice here is we don't need a big arc. We also don't need super heavy weight, but we want to progress into both of those. We're going to get more and more. You'll be surprised as you try this that you will lose your balance quite easily. You're going to get better with that over time. The idea here usually is go for time, so maybe 30 seconds of work to 45 seconds to a minute of work, or we can start to progress the weight, right, and how far we are arcing this kettlebell. But you will notice that this hip is going to start to burn pretty quickly while it stabilizes in internal rotation, creating external rotation through that motion there, right? So all we got to do here is set a clock, keep it running, trying to go for 30 seconds, 45 seconds, swinging side to side, keeping the inside edge of your foot and the outside edge of your foot equally weighted throughout this, keeping the heel on the ground. Again, keeping a good conscious connection to that foot and feeling the ground as you do this. And again, soft bend in the knee. You'll feel this hip starting to work real hard to stabilize and create motion at the same time. All right, even if you're making mistakes as you go out or losing your balance, let that clock just keep running. Just get back. Again, that's why we're doing this not for reps, but just for time and effort. Okay, so go ahead, give that a shot. Okay, for this exercise, what we need is a wall and a medicine ball. Fairly light on the medicine ball. What we want to do, I kind of focus on with this exercise, is getting our hips to stay back and to be able to push through and create power through those hips. So I'm going to have one foot up on the wall. I'll have my other foot in front. From here, the motion is a rotation towards that front side foot, and then back up towards away, and then through and down into the ground like that. I want you to always maintain pressure of this backside foot into that wall. From here, I want you to get explosive with this hip, but always keeping pressure in this wall. What that does is it allows us to create force and pressure into this hip without moving and extending forward. okay? So you can imagine the golf swing. This is going to help prevent that early extension or giving us a feel, what it feels like to get into this hip, to create power through that hip without coming through over top of that hip, okay? So it's helping us rotate and stay back through the pelvis, keeping the pelvis back, using this left glute to come back and take up that space, okay? So again, it's here, pushing into that wall, here, here. So I can feel myself as I go to contract, to really slam this ball into the ground with my left leg to do this, is that I'm also getting a little bit of contraction here to, again, help influence this stay back through here like that, okay? You can do this on both sides. Go ahead, give it a shot. Okay, for this speed training drill, we got the lightest speed stick you can get. You can use a normal club, or if you find another sort of training aid, again, the lightest version of that aid that you can get. This is all about over speed training and creating speeds faster than you normally could with a normal golf club or driver, okay? So as fast as we can with as light as we can, over speed training for the nervous system. What we're doing with this drill here is a step to swing. So working on generating or putting force forward in that lead side so that we can decelerate that force and turn it into rotation, okay? So all the swing drill is here in slow motion, is starting with your feet together. As we come up into the backswing, right as we finish that backswing, we're going to step forward, and we're going to use that as our cue to then turn. So as we get through here, we step, turn, swing. Okay, now we're doing that in max effort. So we start feet together here. Okay, so what we're doing is using this step to generate more forces easier than you would in a normal golf swing to, again, create more force, more speed, this club head, over speed training. We're adding another element here to get this club head moving as fast as we possibly can. That's what it's all about, speed training and over speed training for the nervous system. Give it a shot. Okay, for this swing drill, all we're doing here is getting into our normal golf position. We're gonna take relatively normal golf swings, but what I want you to do is feel the weight on the inside edge of your right foot and your left foot as we go through this swing. So I never want you to leave the inside edge of either foot as you get into your backswing. Still don't lose that left side. Let it push you this way a little bit. And this right side, don't let yourself get too far over towards that right side. Keep weight on that inside edge. You'll feel this inside part of your thigh working a little bit to do that. So keep inside edge, and then same thing as we come down. I want you to keep both sides all the way till impact, and then you can kind of let things go a little bit. So just think 2, 3 out of 10 effort. Just keep a little bit of weight down on either inside edge as we go through your normal swings, right? And just see if you feel a little bit more power or pressure through there. If you feel like a little bit more coil into that right side and a little bit more speed going down into that left side as you push from side to side. What keeping weight on the inside edge of the feet will do for us, if it's a goal of ours, is it'll force us to use a little bit more of our mobility at the hip, pelvis, knee, ankle, and foot. So we're going to force ourselves to pronate and supinate the foot. We're going to force this tibia to rotate a little bit. We're going to force a little bit more of internal rotation at this hip joint as we start to coil back if we keep this down. Now, if we let this come up, I've just lost a whole bunch of rotation at all of those joints, and we're not supinated anymore. Now we have inverted the foot. Totally different thing, right? So if we keep a little bit of force on this inside edge, I'm now coiling and creating much more rotation at each of these joints. Here, I've just lost a whole bunch. So that's the goal. Just keep a little bit of pressure on the inside edge of both feet. Wait until you kind of get to this outside, right? Keep it there, keep it there. Now we just used way more rotation out of this. What it does, forces us to use a little bit more of that mobility we've been working on. And then we can integrate that, helps integrate that back into the swing a little bit. After you take some swings like that, go back to kind of your normal feels, working on whatever you've been working on, and see if it translates where we just naturally start using a little bit more of that space that we've been working hard to open up. Give it a shot. Okay, so we talked about why the mobility at the ankle and foot is important. We need to be able to pronate and supinate from the foot. We need to be able to dorsiflex and plantar flex at the ankle. We need to be able to rotate and create rotation at the knee joint, right, the tibia, which some people find to be surprising, but it's important if we're going to ground that foot that we have all the rotation from each joint that is supposed to be creating that rotation. We tried some mobility drills and then started to integrate those mobility drills into some stability and motor control drills. Really important. Then we really start to create some more force and speed into it, and we put a club in your hand and make sure that we are getting as much as we can from the ground, specifically at the foot and the ankle. So give all these drills a try. I'd say give it a month or two working through some of the stuff and see how well you have performed, right? Retest those tests that we did at the beginning and see how you're doing. If you have any questions on the movements we did, the testing, or the importance of this stuff, you can shoot me an email. I'll put it in the comments. Let me know. I'll be happy to answer those for you. If you live in the Nashville area, come check out Integrated Rehab and Performance Center. We'd be happy to help.